Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Yeah, why am I wearing a USF shirt? Because I'm a USF Bull. That's my alma mater, but that doesn't mean it stops me from where my roots are, and that's in the Motor City. Anyways, please be joined by my co-host tonight, George Icorn. Welcome to the big
Hello, good to
show.
be back.
Who's actually in the Motor City, and Jeremy Ballrick, who is a little ways from the Motor City, but not as far as I am. Glad to have you guys with us tonight. Well,
Thank you.
the title, obviously, that we have is we talk about the Lions finally win in Dallas. But before we even get to that, I want to talk about this book that I wrote called Lessons from the Microphone Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It's a book that appeals to everybody, whether you're getting into the business or wanting to learn about it or figure out what it used to be like. It's all in there. I have a lot of good top notch stories in there about people that I've interviewed over the years. You can get over at Barnes and Noble, and you can get it over at Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and Kindles, and there are online versions of it as well. So check it out, and feel free to go to www.southfloridatribune.com website, and you can probably locate the link there as well. All right, there you go. Lesson from the microphone from Mr. Microphone himself, the Motor City Madmouth. All right, well, obviously over the weekend, the Dallas Cowboys got clobbered by the Lions. I know Dan Campbell would have liked to have put a 50 spot up there, and he was throwing the ball, trying to give it to Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones. But let's go over the game just briefly and talk about the big story that came out of it. Detroit clobbered Dallas 47-9 Sunday, defeating the Cowboys for the first time since 2013, but lose Aiden Hutchinson to a broken leg. I've heard reports that he'll be out as little as 4 months and as long as 8. Don't know where we're going to find out. Is it somewhere in the middle? Dan Campbell seems to think that it could get him a little sooner. That might be wishful thinking, but you never know what the determination of a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. Bear in mind that when the Lions made the Aiden Hutchinson pick, okay, that the Lions wasted no time going up there, much to the dismay of Roger Goodell in the NFL, getting it up there in 2, 3 minutes when they would have liked to go 10 or whatever the amount was. Jeremy Ballrick, go ahead.
Well, that pick was actually turned in within 10 seconds of the pick being announced, and they had to do a commercial break. That's the only reason why it took 3 minutes to get Aiden Hutchinson's name called. And that's what he was mad about. We literally turned it in as fast as they said the name. Uh,
I remember
but
that.
at the same time, you know, the good news is there was no nerve, no ligament, no tendon or muscle damage in the break. And where it happened, with it being on the lower side of the tibia and fibia, it actually is going to heal faster. And the guy that was on the medical staff for Michigan when Aiden Hutchinson had the worst break
Right.
his freshman year,
Right.
he actually said Aiden Hutchinson, the way he heals at his age and the way he rehabs, there is a 55% chance he may be ready within 3 months. So, and that's coming from a medical professional. That's not
Right.
my opinion. I'm not saying that.
Right.
So there is an outside possibility. That's why they didn't put the season ending IR on Hutchinson yet. They did it at that 12 week, which still pushes you to week 18. Here's the
Well,
key. If they activate him at week 18, that means there's a remote possibility he'll be 100% by the Super Bowl if they make it there. So that is the key to watch. If he goes on the season ending IR, you know it's taking longer and you won't see him till next season. But the good news is he'll be completely healed before next off season. So it's really nothing to worry about. And the other thing that I said right after this injury, and it actually came true, I said it Monday afternoon on my solo show, and then again on the one with my co host Monday night. I said the Aiden Hutchinson injury makes it easier to get the Aleem McNeil done faster. I just didn't expect it to be the next day.
I mean, you got to hand it to the people in Dallas. I mean, he got to the hospital right away, and they had the surgery right away. I got to hand it, just like what happened in Damar Hamlin's situation. The local medical people were really pretty good about getting this thing done. So kudos to the folks out in Dallas. They did a
Well,
really
that,
good job.
that orthopedic surgeon at the Dallas Fort Worth Hospital is the same one that treated Jonathan Brooks of the University of Texas for his ACL. And he's coming back finally. He's activated off of his IR for the Panthers. So you may see their running game get a little boost. in the next week or two. But yeah, I'm glad that they got right to the hospital, didn't waste any time. And when I saw the video and that it was friendly fire, nothing that was done is a dirty play because literally a Lee McNeil's leg hit Hutchinson's leg, and the way it bent, we're lucky it wasn't an Alex Smith situation.
Yeah, we sure are. Well, I got news for you. You know, the Lions beat the Cowboys so badly on Jerry Jones's birthday, his 82nd birthday. And, you know, Mike McCarthy is thinking, gosh almighty, I can't lose this bat on my boss's birthday. And here you
Yeah,
are, very respectful to me. And, you know, the way on National Bosses Day. So I think that was pretty funny. But I don't think Mike McCarthy, who's actually on the final year of his contract, who knows what's going to ultimately happen to that situation. I'll give George an opportunity to pick it up, but on his 82nd birthday, seriously, really? I mean, this is
yeah.
bad stuff.
The Lions gave Jerry his birthday spanking.
All right, George, go ahead.
Well, if anybody's an eternal optimist, it's always Jeremy. I don't know. I'm not going to go for that, Jeremy. I'm not buying any of that stuff till we see how he recovers and how he tries to fit back into things. 12 weeks, you're talking not week 18, you're talking playoffs if you said 12 weeks.
Yes,
That's wild card or the next round by then in January. Yeah, I mean, if anybody could come through it, obviously Hutch is the one. I mean, the guy is dedicated to football. He's dedicated his life to that sport ever since he went to Divine Child High School and probably before that. And I mean, this guy is the one you don't want to lose. And this is going to be a big change for Detroit. But these people that are sometimes spouting stuff like, "Oh, there goes the Super Bowl." Come on, really? I mean,
I
every commentator out there wants to bury the Lions because they're jealous or whatever the reason is. But don't start putting stuff like that out there. You got 40, 50 guys that are busting their butt every day, and like they always say, next man up. But yes, to answer your original thought, Scott and Jeremy, it is a big loss. I mean, he is, but he's not irreplaceable. They hope to get a replacement, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, I'm sure. But yeah, it was sad to see, and obviously the Lions training staff and the Dallas training staff went to work immediately to help him out, and like you said, take him to the hospital and get them prepped for surgery right away, which is not too common that happens right away like that. But yeah, I mean, I wish him the best of luck, and obviously the camaraderie, the team, the togetherness on this team really shows. Everybody's railing behind Hutch and his family right now.
Well, let me tell you, the wild card in this whole thing is one guy that we haven't mentioned yet, but we're going to mention him now, Brad Holmes. Man, gosh, oh, Pete, you talk about a genius. Right when that injury happened, I'm thinking, oh, what Brad Holmes got up his bag of tricks, man. I'm telling you, the smartest general manager they've had in who knows how long. I may even take it back to Jerry Vanisi back in 1990, in the early 90s, but Brad Holmes is a genius. You know, first of all right, let the first day calm down a little bit. They were only beating the daylights out of them. Anybody ever forget the Lions had a pretty good offense? Yeah, yes, okay. Ever heard of Jared Goff? You ever heard of David Montgomery? Yes, okay. Ever hear of Amon St. Brown and all these other guys? Yes, okay. So they're still running up the score. They just had to come down to earth a little. Okay, we don't have Aiden. What are we going to do next? And of course, the obvious names are going to come up, but Brad Holmes is a genius. And Jared Goff and Dan Campbell have found a way to work together. This team is so solid as a rock in terms of that clubhouse and culture. It's ridiculous, isn't it, Jeremy?
yes, and to your point, I remember the last time we had a team captain go down to a season-ending injury, which ended up being a career-ending injury in the '90s, which was Mike Utley,
Oh,
and the
God, I was
team
at
for the
that. I was at that game. Sorry to interrupt you, Jeremy, but I was
yep,
at that game.
and the team the rest of the season wore Mike Utley's number and a little circle sticker on the back of the helmet, and
Yeah,
rallied around it. This one's for Mike, and went all the way to the playoffs that year.
right.
I think you might see that type of camaraderie here because of how much he meant to this defense and the roster overall. He was a very
Right.
vocal leader in the locker room. You didn't always see it on the field, but he constantly would congratulate his teammates. He constantly would hug them, pat them on the head, or act like he was going to kick their butt when they screwed up. So Yeah, he's that type of team leader, and this may rally this team to play better than their talent level, is what I'm getting at. The one thing that we saw in this game that I hoped would happen coming out of the bye week, how many defensive pass interferences did Terrion Arnold have this
You
week?
know what? That's the one thing, Jeremy, I was watching most. Let's face the reality. Terry and Arnold has had some growing pains, but they're sticking with them. They can't remember. They only played a fifth or sixth NFL game. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither Terry and Arnold. So, you know what? I was paying attention to what he was doing, and I'm thinking as I'm watching the game, okay, he was not making a lot of mistakes. He just wasn't, and I was
He
proud
had
of
one
him.
defensive holding penalty, and that was a legit one. It
Right,
looked like he was reaching for the ball and he got a hold of the jersey. Whatever. That's a legit hold. It was past 5 yards. It's against the rules. Other than that, he didn't commit a penalty. And
Yeah.
I was so proud of that young man. Yet, who had two defensive pass interference penalties, which led to field goals?
right.
CD3.
Well, I can game though. At least the
Well,
Lions. At least the Lions had a kicker named Jake Bates, so he didn't have to go for it on every fourth down either. Go ahead,
well,
He did
George.
go for it on two.
no, I was just going to add, and you know what, guys? The defense, like you said, Jeremy and Scott, they didn't fold the tent. Are you kidding
Oh,
me? Dallas couldn't even score a touchdown in Detroit, even after Aiden Hutchinson went down. They settled for 3 field goals. So the
I
Lions defense, to prove your point, Jeremy, about the rallying and that's spot on because you saw what the Lions defense did. They didn't go crying and say, "Oh, let's just let Prescott enjoy the second half." Hell no, that's not a
no.
Detroit
Look,
team.
look at exactly what happened, and I'm going to refer back to one of my UDFA profiles that I did last season in the off season in 2023. Trevor Nowoski, right up the gut, stunning, just like Aiden Hutchinson did, through the middle and sacked Dak Prescott on that third down. How huge was that play for that defense to know that we had somebody that was
Yeah,
considered
somebody
a
else.
cast
Yeah,
off
right,
Right.
come in
right.
and make a contributing play, and also had two pass breakups on Jake Ferguson. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but they were trying to get it to Jake Ferguson to
I
get stuff
saw
going,
that. Yeah,
and he was batting them away. And everybody thought it was Jack Campbell. No, it was number 53, Trevor Nowoski. I went back and rewound and slowed it down so I could see the jersey number, and I was like, that's the guy I always said if he had a chance to play on the defense, he would prove his worth. And I think he did. He proved his worth to be that Sam linebacker that
yeah.
Derek Barnes was turning into. And I think he might have earned that starting position.
All right, so let's go on. George, did you say everything you have to say? Because I want to go on to the replacements. You good to go?
Well, I just want to add one thing, and I mean not to be overlooked, like you said, Scott. The score, the high score, the offense, everybody clicking. I mean, Jared Goff, another masterful performance, and hats off to them. I had a strange feeling this was going to be a butt kicking because they really owed Dallas big time, and they came through Detroit's offense. That's all I wanted to add on that subject. Thanks, Scott.
Well, that was a good feeling to have because a lot of people felt the same way as you. When you go down to Dallas a couple times in a row, you're on the wrong end of bad luck. And I'll say bad luck. And you knew this wasn't a matter of if it was going to happen, it's a matter of when it was going to happen. And Dak Prescott, to me, looked like a pancake who was a sitting duck in his own bedroom in his backyard. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we'll move on because I know the replacement part is every bit as important for what we've already talked about. I'm going to go over a couple here, Jeremy. All I want you to do is reinforce whether I'm in the ballpark or not. Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Replacements. Mark Davis has already ruled out Maxx Crosby. He said he's not going anywhere.
That's
And
right.
obviously, the guy played at Eastern Michigan. Hassan Reddick is a name being thrown out there. Zadarius Smith and Jadavian Clowney, I think, is another name that's been thrown out there. And of course, you talked about Trayvon Walker, right? So, all right, now that I mentioned the names, Jeremy, it's your responsibility to give me the pros and cons on a few of the ones that we have out there.
Maxx Crosby was a pipe dream for Lions fans because they were hoping he'd be a free agent. Because after we put that beat down on the Raiders last season, a lot similar to this beatdown that we did Sunday. He literally said in an interview, the only team I'd want to play for other than the Raiders is the Detroit Lions if I'm a free agent. Key words there. If I'm a free agent.
Right.
He re-signed with Mark Davis. He's cigar buddies. They go to the cigar bar on off days together. So
Right.
I don't think Mark Davis wants to get rid of Maxx
Right.
Crosby. And Maxx Crosby has said the past 3 weeks on Fridays, I'm a Raider for life. Stop asking if I want out. So I think that pretty much squashes that. The Hassan Reddick thing, it started to grow legs. Brad Holmes reached out to the agents of Hassan Reddick this morning
Right.
about 9 a.m. is when I saw the reports start coming in. But at the same time, if we were going to get a deal like a third round 2026 pick to get Hassan Reddick so they got in compensation exactly what they gave up to the Eagles, that deal would have been done in a heartbeat. But I think the agent said Hassan Reddick is not willing to play out the rest of the year on his current contract. And we have a lot of expiring contracts and people we need to resign out of our draftees and stuff. And people can say that, oh, that's just throwing away the season. No, it's not. It's being smart. You take care of your homegrown guys that have proven themselves on the
Right.
team before you take care of an outsider. Then you talked about Zadarius Smith from the Browns, which that grew legs at about 3 o'clock. There was a report saying the deal may be imminent for a fourth rounder. And the one that you added that I like is Trayvon Walker. And I spoke that to you because I think he could be had really cheap with the Jags starting to do a fire sale there. I think
Right.
we could get him possibly for the fifth round pick this year and next year's third. And I think that would be the icing on the cake. You get 2 years on a guy, the rest of this season, all of next year, and then the fifth year option if he's doing good because you can pick up the fifth year option after the season. So you could have control of him till 2026 with Aiden Hutchinson being fully healthy by the time the offseason gets here. And after you take care of the expiring contracts that are done, if Hutchinson is showing up at camp and looking like he did of old and looking like the same guy, you'll see his extension get done then. Otherwise, it'll be business as usual in Detroit, and they'll want to see it on the field first.
Okay. And one other one is Jadavian Clowney. I know that that's a name that. Uh,
I haven't seen him do anything for Carolina since he's been there. He's been on and off their practice squad, so I don't think making a trade for him makes sense. Wait for him to put him on the practice squad again and poach him makes more sense if that's your target.
okay. All right, George. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, Trayvon Walker. I'm not so sure it's not going to cost you a little bit more than that, but he's a guy to really draw a circle around. I mean, Jaguars are doing terrible again. They're off to a brutal start, 1-5, and heck, I mean, even if Detroit has to give them a couple draft choices, I would make that deal in a heartbeat. What is he? He's 23 years old, only 6'5", 272, and 2022. Yeah, he was drafted. And I'll tell you what, I mean, if they could, boy, that's another steal for Brad Holmes if they could get somebody like Walker. I
I
mean,
just hope
go ahead.
I just hope Brad Holmes hasn't lost that Joe Dumars trade talisman to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
That is funny.
Walker's got 5 sacks this year and 8 solo tackles, but again, he's playing for a real team that's got off to a doggy start, the Jacksonville Jaguars. But no, I think that any of the names that you mentioned, some of them, of course, are not going to happen, like Maxx Crosby. But I really think that you're going to see Holmes and Campbell get on the phone and make some conversation of this because they're not going to stand still. We know that that's not their style. They want to win it all this year,
Well,
obviously.
well, the irony is this: Trayvon Walker was drafted ahead of Aiden Hutchinson,
That's right.
and now it's amazingly that they can find themselves on the same team. And Jadavian Clowney, if he ever plays those capabilities, could be awfully good. But the key word is if, because he's on his third or fourth, fifth stop now. But yeah, Trayvon Walker fast. Well, I knew it was close, Jeremy. Okay. At that point, Jeremy, you really lose count. You really do. Okay.
Yeah,
But getting back to my point, okay, it reminds me of the year when the Detroit Pistons had Isaiah Thomas and Mark Aguirre as well. Remember that those guys were, I think, 1 and 2 in their respective draft classes, and they ended up together as well. I'm not going to get into that story or nothing because that's for another day or another time. But if Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson are together, oh my goodness. Okay.
Now, think about that. Yes, he has 5 sacks. So that means he is tied for 7th because he's lower in the tackle. There's a
Yeah.
lot of players at 5 sacks this year. There was
Right.
only one player at 8 sacks this year. Do you know who that was?
Who's that?
Aiden Hutchinson.
There you
Hutchinson.
go. All right. So
So
there you
Yeah.
go.
that being said, while everybody is going, "Oh my God, we stink without him," I actually did a deep dive into the rest of the defensive stats. So we've had sacks by guys that's only got 48 snaps. That's Malcolm Rodriguez and Levi Onwuzurike in role playing roles. So uh, Rodriguez has one, and Onwuzurike has 1.5. So there's 2.5. You have another 2.5 who's actually did it 5 games ahead of schedule, which is why he got his extension done in Aleem McNeil. He's at 2.5 sacks after 5 games. The other one is DJ Reader. And we have 24 pressures outside of Aiden Hutchinson. You
Right.
add in the 18 that Aiden Hutchinson had, that's crazy. We've had 42 pressures in 5 games. I remember a time in 2021 where we didn't have 42 pressures in 10 games.
Right. No, I hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Look, I got a couple other points I want to get to in the National Football League, but yeah, there's no doubt that I have a feeling that something's going to get done by Wednesday. If it doesn't get done by late tonight, I know the Lions would like to make a move, and they pretty much are going through all of the check marks about which ones they can or which ones they cannot do, or realistic versus not realistic. And I think it should be narrowed down. But I wouldn't put nothing past Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell. These guys are stuck together. They were put together, and you talk about an unbelievable 1-2 punch between coach and general man. I don't know if anyone better. All right, well, I'm going to throw some crazy NFL stats with you, and I'll let you guys both comment them before we call it a night here on the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. My name is Scott Morganroth. Please be joined by George Eichhorn and Smoking Jeremy Bullrick. All right, crazy stat number one. Okay, you ready? The Philadelphia Eagles have scored 0 points in the first quarter this season. But what makes that so interesting is they haven't done this since the franchise's first 2 seasons in 1933 and 34. Jeremy Ballrick, how is that? A team in their first 5 games, okay, hasn't scored any points at all in the first quarter. Really?
Well, you really hope it's just the growing pains of a new offensive coordinator. Or is it the fact that they shot their wad a little early, re-signing guys when they didn't have to? You know,
Okay.
they made a lot of re-signings. AJ Brown's been in and out of the lineup due to an injury. Jalen Hurts hasn't looked like the same quarterback since the collapse after being 10-1 last year.
Right.
And there's all sorts of things going on behind the scenes, and I wonder if there's some sort of disarray in the locker room under Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, George, what's your take on
Well,
that?
yeah, it's a very, very alarming red flag to me for a team that a lot of people had contending with San Francisco and Detroit for the NFC title. So those are alarming numbers. And the other one is noticeable too. You mentioned about Jalen Hurts, 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That's not a stat that anyone is going to be proud of, especially if you're a winning team like the Eagles. So you're again spot on, guys. I mean, they're not scoring in the first quarter, they're not getting off to a good start. That's on the coaches, but it's also on those players that are starting, man. You got to get points in that first quarter, or else you're playing behind, basically. So yeah, that really stood out.
Okay, and the final, yeah, it really is amazing. When I saw that stat, holy moly,
Yeah,
how is that possible? First 5 games, seriously, really? And you can't score points in the first quarter. I can understand 1 or 2 games, but not 5. And who knows if it'll be 6? It's like I don't know. The amazing part about it, folks, is you can't make this stuff up if you really don't try. I mean, it is what it is. You throw the stats out there, and I've always learned in my 44 years in this business. Let me tell you something, man. You know what? I'm a big content hunter and a researcher, and I like to go after stuff that most people aren't going to find. Anybody can talk about the obvious and they can have the clicks and all the business and all that, but come on, let's dig for some real stuff, people. All right, final stat I want to get to tonight. I know Jeremy George Eichhorn and I have the sports other shows later. Jeremy has his, and I have the Sports Exchange with Eichhorn. But the Chicago Bears have scored 35 plus points in consecutive games for the first time since 2013. Back to the ball wreck. Okay, how is that possible other than Caleb Williams?
Wow. Caleb Williams has really progressed nicely, but at
Right,
the same time, look at the level of teams he's faced. This week schedule to start for the Bears is actually helping his development, and it's showing because every week he keeps getting a little better and a little better. But at the same time, is it going to give him a false sense of confidence and think he can make some of those throws that look miraculous catch wise when he gets against the better
right.
quality of opponents later on? That remains to be seen.
Okay, George, your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, right now, as we know, guys, this NFC North is just going crazy here. Uh, these teams are winning, but Chicago, I agree. I mean, Caleb Williams got 9 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. But scoring that many points, the Jags, they beat them 35-16, and then the Panthers 36-10.
Right, that's true.
And then they beat the Rams also, and they beat the Titans. But I'm telling you, this kid, and we saw him when he was drafted in Detroit. We were there, the three of us, but and Candy too, of course. We saw the excitement, and I know that the Chicago people were extremely happy that they were able to draft him. Time will tell. So far for rookie, yeah, he's doing pretty good. But you got to have a great cast, and you got to stay healthy.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not afraid to admit this too. I thought for sure in my mind that he could be a bust, and I'm not saying that he won't. Again, you guys just mentioned it yourself. You got the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars. You're putting up 35 against both of them. I wouldn't classify this as a steel curtain or any of those or any of these other mauling type of offenses that are going at you. But you know what? If you can take advantage though of a weak schedule and build your confidence, I have no problem with it at all. Really. I mean, let's think of all these other quarterbacks that are losing their job because of the schedule and then they have bad coaching, let alone an offensive coordinator who doesn't know what they're doing. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say what's going on with the New York Jets because I'm not that smart. Okay, I don't even think Houdini or Einstein could figure that out, and nor am I going to even get into it tonight.
O
What,
line.
what,
I got a simple problem with the Jets, and it's their O line.
right.
Getting
Well,
Devontae Adams is great, but guess what? That doesn't fix their O line.
that's true. But by the same token, okay, well, I believe in your point. Zach Wilson at this time was what 3-3, and Aaron Rodgers is 2-4. So, and they both had, a questionable offensive line, and I'm trying to be very nice about it. And I'm not
You
going to
don't
turn
have to
this
be
into a
nice.
Jets topic. Well, it's okay. I'm trying to be respectful here. Keep it G rated. Okay,
Okay.
although I don't know if I'm capable of doing
G
that.
rated is G rated is fine, but let's face it, Aaron Rodgers has made some passes that we're not used to him seeing. We're not used to seeing him underthrow straight to a
Well,
defender not named Kirby Joseph.
yeah, that's true. And by the same token, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you want to throw your one wide receiver under the bus because you got your pal coming. That's another story. But we're going to stay on point though about the Bears. Okay, let's face it. Matt Eberflus, we all know, is probably under fire. He's got to have a decent year. But I think the Bears have always prided themselves around defense, anyways, and have always found a way to at least game competitive. It's their offense over the years, which has been anemic. The best quarterback I've always thought they've had they have a replacement with Jim McMahon, who won the Super Bowl. Okay, and that's it. But Mike Ditka didn't appreciate Jim McMahon, did he? No, but all he did was win the Super Bowl, right, Mike? Right. Of course, if I were buying Mike Ditka, he'd probably have an attitude. I'd say, you know what?
Uh,
I'd buy him a cigar here from wherever I need to have it, and maybe he'll have a little bit of that Romo or what do you call it? I don't know. It starts with an R, anyways. But
Well, you talk about the defense, and you're right. I mean, Ditka and Butkus and Singletary. I mean, we know because you guys have all covered along with me this division. So the black and blue division, But yeah, Chicago did have an awesome defense, and that's what they've been known for over the years. But they just had
right.
terrible luck with their quarterbacks, no question about it.
Well, that's putting it mildly at Jay Cutler, okay, and then of course on the defensive end, Brian Urlacher was no,
Oh yeah,
No slouch.
he was pretty darn good too. So
yeah.
they've
So
always been known for their defense. It's their quarterback situation, which has been erratic. But we'll see whether they get it right with Caleb Williams, and if you can have softer opponents early, and the fact that you got four NFC North teams that if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, they could all get in. That's unbelievable because they all get picked on. Let's not forget that Minnesota's 5-0. The Lions are what 4-1. The Packers, I think, are 4-2, right, Jeremy? I believe,
Yep.
and the
And
Bears are 4-2, right?
the odd man out right now would be the Packers because they're the only team with the divisional loss.
Okay, well, regardless, I mean it's
Yeah.
early, but they all have winning records.
Yes.
And it's early. I mean, it really is early. Wait till these teams start knocking each other off, and I know the Lions are set to play Minnesota, I believe, on Sunday, right?
Are you prepared
Yes.
for the craziest stat? And it has to do with the NFC North, and I've got two of them for you.
All right, go ahead. We got a few men on it.
In the NFL, the number one point differential teams in the NFL, number one is the Vikings, number two is the Lions, number three is the Bears, number four is the Packers.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And in the last 2 weeks, there has not been an NFC North team that's lost a game.
Okay, I like it. Well, on a night where we're dishing
Yeah.
out crazy stats, Jeremy just added a couple more.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
with that said, as we get ready to wrap this puppy up here, just want to let you know that the Motor City Mad Mouse Show obviously has lessons from the microphone all written into it. Tuning into the endurance of visionary leaders. You can get that on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble. It's online. Check it out. Google my name, and then you can find it, or go to www.southfloridatribune.com. You'll find it there. George wrote the foreword to it, and Jeremy is also in the book as one of my guys that I develop. So,
One of your pupils.
There you go.
Yeah,
I ended up going out there and having a senior moment here, but yeah, he's a pupil, and this guy wrote the foreword.
Pupil,
So
understudy, intern, whatever you want to call me.
I'll call you an intern. You're a pupil. That's okay. That's fair enough. But you've done a good job progressing here. But the main thing is this. This is the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. I am the Motor City Mad Mouse, and these are my two sidekicks. We do it every Wednesday night at around 8:10 Eastern Time. And with that said, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. So on behalf of George Eichhorn and Smoking Jeremy Ballrick, we'll see you next week, same time, same station, nofilter.net. And I hope everybody else has a great weekend. And don't think I don't have a little Tony the Tiger, although I'm Scott the Tiger or the USF Bull in tonight's episode.
Great.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday night. Bye now.
Bye-bye.